Hey, thanks for listening to The Create Unknown. To unlock the extended bonus conversation, sign up at patreon.com/thecreateunknown. Now, on with the show. What means sex?
Yes.
Hey, welcome to The Create Unknown. I am Kevin Lieber. With me, as always, is Matthew Tabor, and our very, very special guest today is Uncle Erik, a.k.a. Hot Dad. Hot Dad, thank you for joining The Create Unknown.
Hello. It's an honor to be here.
So I must say, first off, that you are our first guest that I didn't know about until we started this podcast and until we developed our Discord community. And you were one of the first people when we asked our Discord community, like, who we should interview. Hot Dad came up, and I was like, who is Hot Dad? This was probably 6 months ago or so. And, since then, I've become a major, major fan. I love what you're doing. If anybody's listening and hasn't checked out Hot Dad yet, how would you describe your music? So it's like, I would describe it as internet music, but that sounds kind of vague.
I refer to it as emotional comedy music because I think that that's like the underlying basis of everything I do is just take something that's like superfluous and stupid and then inject it with as much emotional energy as possible. And that, I don't know, that just seems to be like, I started from that and then it's just grown. Like it's become like a deeper and deeper thing. So that's kind of how I describe it. Like that's my simplest sentence.
That's amazing. Where did that, I think that is really apt. Where did that come from though? Like what was the genesis of emotional comedy music? Because it's not necessarily anything that I've heard before.
Have you heard my Girls Who Care project?
Mm-mm.
Okay. So I put out I call it a serious album in quotations because I don't know, like music that's not comedy music. Is it serious? I don't know. I don't know how to describe music that's not comedy music ultimately, but I made a quote unquote serious album. And it was like when I was waiting for that to be mixed by a professional mixer, that was when I started making Hot Dad songs. And it was something that, my TV project, I don't know if you've listened to those, but I redid like 105 TV theme songs. It was just like it was basically me like testing my ability to compose every day. Cause I was like, if I want to be serious about this, I need to do this every day. Like creativity is a routine. You need to really take this seriously. And it was like the songs initially started extremely stupid, but then all of a sudden they started getting to this point where I was like, oh, I got to redo that with my serious project someday. I got to remake this song. That's too good for a comedy song. And then I started ignoring that. I started just like shoving that impulse away and saying, you know what, wherever this takes me, I'm just going to go with it. And so it was that, I don't know, the background of serious music and then just making comedy music. And suddenly I was incorporating those same elements in it and just choosing to keep them in there instead of, I don't know, like, making it so stupid that nobody can take it seriously.
Yeah, I love the challenge of doing it. I have seen some of the theme songs that you've done. I just watched the SpongeBob one before we started recording, which is very popular. It's one of the most popular videos on your YouTube channel.
It's because Viacom took all the other SpongeBob intros down, and I fought back as fair use, and so mine got locked in. Like they have to sue me now to take it down.
Wow.
So mine's like the only
one that remains.
Yeah.
But when I back in the day, I was studying comedy and I got comedy books and blah 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 blah. Long story short, the comedy books always tell you to develop these routines and these challenges and like kind of workshop ideas. So for instance, it would say, write 50 jokes a day about like the current news, like just open up a newspaper or whatever, or not now would be, you know, open up Twitter or whatever, go through the news and just sit down and write 50 jokes a day. And and once it turns into that kind of like exercise, like you're exercising your ability to write jokes, like eventually you get really good at it. And it sounds like you're setting up yourself with the challenge of creating a new theme song every day, almost kind of like how Casey Neistat set up the challenge of creating a new vlog every day, a new film every day, really helped you kind of harness your chops. And
I mean, you kind of learn it. Obviously, it establishes your limitations. It allows you to figure out like what variables. There are some people who are really into embracing chaos, and I'm trying to get better at that. But like, it gave me a reference point because like there are a lot of the TV themes that I did in one day. I mixed them, they were done, and like if I just slept on it, I think it would have turned out very differently, like in terms of technically. So I don't know. Yeah, it's like you do that kind of thing. You figure out where your limitations are, and it's like I don't do that daily anymore. Like what I'm making has extended into like, you know, obviously I want to spend as much time as possible on them. But I feel like to get started and to figure out like how you work best, like you've got to do it that way. Like that's how it starts. That's how you make it obviously a routine, but like I don't think that my routine, it's not like I compose from, you know, 10 to 2 every day and then from, you know, 2 to 3 like it's not that regimented, but like I just know how much work I need to do in a day for it to be like enough work done that day. And for it to feel like I've accomplished something. But I couldn't have done that without doing a song a day, etc., if that makes sense.
So how did you get to a point where you were making these types of songs? I mean, what came before Hot Dad? Where was Hot Dad before the baby came out and he became the dad? Was he hot something else?
Well, so okay, we'll get into this earlier in the discussion because I've dumped this on people like at the end before. So basically, I was an erotic romance author, self-published from basically 2012 to 2014, and that was like the most lucrative thing I've ever done. Like I had a really, really great 2013, and I was able to like live off that money. And it was in the middle of it. I don't know. There was a time where I was like, I felt really, really good about writing erotica, and it was something that you could make money on very easily. Because like I don't know how much you know about Amazon's like all the ebook companies. Like the royalty rate it's a 70% split for authors. So you could write a story that was 3,000 words, and that I could do that in a day, and I could be selling that. It could be making me $2 a sale. So that same thing happened to me within erotic romance, where I wrote a ton of shorts. And then I was like, no, I want to start writing novels now. I want to do longer things. I want to, like, it was the exact same process. It was like, make a bunch of things that work for me, smaller things, and then, you know, have the time and energy to do longer things. And so I did not get into that because I wanted to be a writer. It was because I read, like, examples of erotica that people had written. And I was like, this is like my writing level in high school. You know, I think I could do this, and it worked, but eventually I just kind of burned out on it, and I was like, I want to do music, because I'm going to say about 2010 is when I started teaching myself to compose. I'd just been like a drummer in bands. That was all I was ever doing, and then I had a bunch of bands fall apart, and then I don't know, I started taking it really seriously around 2010-ish. I started just teaching myself as much as I could learn, and then, it was 2012 is when I quit my last job, which was in IT. And then that was when I tried the erotica thing, which lasted until 2014. And then basically 2014 was just me living off of erotica money and every day writing a song and not making anything until probably maybe mid 2015. I mean, it was a complete drought of money for the most part. But then I did that TV record and I put it up. And suddenly people were buying it on Bandcamp. And I was like, I never thought that this could happen. Like, I have no idea how this is happening. So
how did they find it?
So when you pulled...
Sorry, Matt. How did they find your TV themes?
I was just putting them up as... It was basically trolling. I don't know. The whole process was that I'm not a good video editor. I'm not a visual artist. And people were telling me, you know, I already had so I started on YouTube in 2007. I had a friend of mine, and we did this drum instructional video that was called Alex's Drum Time that was actually kind of big. I mean, it was like at that time, getting like 40,000 views on a video, like 2007, I don't know, it felt like something. And then I worked with him. He was kind of like, we had kind of an Andy Kaufman, Bob Zmuda relationship. I was like trying to be the Bob Zmuda and like write routines and stuff for him. And so we were doing a lot of that stuff, and he went to college in 2009, and the whole project like kind of fell apart. So I had like maybe 200 subscribers on this YouTube channel that were, they wanted us to make stuff, and I didn't want to shoot videos myself alone. And so then, yeah, I just decided to I just started singing. Somebody in my house was watching Girls at the time, and I just started singing the theme song to Girls, and then I just set it to the opening credits and uploaded that. And then the next one was Scrubs, I just decided to do. And then I just left the HBO logo on the front because I thought that was funny. And then I'm uploading them as like, you know, Scrubs intro HQ, you know, I mean, it wasn't, again, the HBO logo was there, so I felt like I was giving people an out. Like, if the show's not on HBO, you've got a chance to catch this. But then it was like, I think maybe the fourth or fifth one I did was The Wonder Years, which, again, had the HBO logo on the front. and I could see how long people were watching it before they stopped. And they were watching, like almost the whole video before saying, like, wait a minute, this isn't my beloved, you know, TV show's theme song. And then posting angry comments, and that one got, like, hundreds of thousands of views because it was, again, like, the only one that was up. But that was it. It was just more or less misleading people with the titles, but I wasn't doing it as like it wasn't supposed to be like a mean-spirited thing. And I was not planning like weird things would sync up between the footage and my song. Like I was not watching the intro. A lot of the shows I've never seen even, I would just read the Wikipedia page and just write a song that came to mind and then sync up the footage. And these really serendipitous weird things would sync up. And I swear, like I was not trying to influence that at all. And so that made it fun for me, like to have that added, you know, it would be this capricious thing that would happen when I finish it and I lock it up and I'm like, how the hell did that happen? Like, that's crazy.
So I want to jump back and ask,
okay.
We're going to go back to erotic fiction.
Yes.
You said that 2014, that's when that stopped. Did you pull the plug on that, or did something change with what was happening on Amazon or something else? Because you said it was going well. Why would you give that up and do something else?
Well, so I can continue the parallels discussion. Just like on YouTube, Amazon started pulling kinks, started pulling fetishes, you had to rename things. They would shut down certain categories of books that people wanted to buy. You had to get things past their editors to get them live. And it just became every other day it was the sky is falling situation. Like it's crazy how now in retrospect, how much it was just literally what has happened on YouTube, but it was in, you know, the fiction marketplace. So yeah, I don't know. It just became exhausting. I was part of a community of people that were like, they all had like writing degrees, English degrees, and all they wanted to do was write for a living. And all they could get is like adjunct professor positions that had no benefits. And then all of a sudden they can just write every day, you know, for as many hours as they want, and they can make huge sums of money, some of them. And yeah, so then the community, it was just like every other day somebody's like, we're done. You know, we're not going to be able to make a living with this anymore. And then it evens out and you kind of figure out what the new rules are. But I don't know, like the first novel I released did really well. And then it was just diminishing marginal returns every other time. Like every other novel didn't do as well. And it was like, I stopped like wanting to, like when I'd meet people initially, it was like really fun to tell them I wrote erotica. And then, you know, they'd have all these like, you know, questions about it. And then eventually I just started like, it didn't feel like it represented me anymore.
So Amazon has cracked down a lot on like the censorship of these books. Okay.
Yes. It's changed the whole marketplace. If you looked at like the kind of titles, the kind of cover art that was permitted, I mean, you could just use like the most blatant gratuitous terms you wanted in the titles, and that was like the best way to make sure that people knew what the book was about. And then all of a sudden you had to start like coming up with code words to describe certain fetishes and things because Amazon would block those books from going live in the store. And it was just, I don't know, you were just constantly guessing, and it is exactly the same as how things have played out on YouTube with tags and everything else that, you know, frustrate people. That you don't know what you're capable of even doing. Like, you don't know what you're allowed to do. And I don't know, it becomes scary. And so, yeah, it's weird because then I left and went to YouTube, and then I've kind of seen the same thing play out. So
I was doing a workshop with a lot of beginning YouTubers like a month ago. And they had a lot of questions. Everybody wants their channel to succeed in some way, whether it's financially or just having a lot of people, whatever it is. And I almost feel like at this point, one of the first things you really need to think about with a creative project is the exit plan. Like, it sounds so tragic and dumb, to be like, I'm going to start by thinking about what happens when this ends. Right. But as I think about all these different things, you were doing it on Amazon. I started when eBay started in the late 90s. Yeah. And that was amazing, and it was free. You could do kind of whatever you wanted, provided it wasn't like horribly illegal. Not that I did, I was pretty young, so I was doing straight up stuff. But then all of a sudden, the fees change, or, the way you can list things change, and it's a different landscape, and it's not viable anymore. Well, that same thing has happened in virtually every online and or creative project that I've seen, whether it's you on Amazon, what we're seeing now on YouTube. And I think that the people who survive on this stuff are the ones who have a sense of adjusting. And we've talked in other episodes about adjusting, evolving, all of that. Like, everybody knows you've got to do that. It's not going to be the same forever. But that idea of an exit, what are you going to do when it's time to move on? That's something you kind of need to think about really early. Right.
And I mean, what I think is most important about this, though, is that it's not like, it's about as many revenue streams as possible. It's about as many efforts as you can possibly, come up with to survive. Mm-hmm. And as long as you're willing to attempt those things, because it's like, I'm not a gigantic artist on Spotify. I've never had any inclusion on any like major playlists, but I have on average like 40,000 unique listeners a month. Like, that's higher than some of the bands that I listen to. And I don't understand how that can be the case, but I'm also not splitting that revenue like 4 ways. I'm not splitting it with a label. And so Spotify ends up being like 2.5 to 3 times more per month than I make on YouTube. Like, I have a tiny following on Twitch, I think like 1,000 followers, and that is about the same as I make on YouTube. So YouTube for me has been kind of written off as a self-preservation. Like, the more energy I put into thinking about, like, I'm going to upload this thing I really care about and YouTube's going to bury it, like, the more energy I put into that, like, it's just going to kill me creatively. So I just have to, like, arbitrarily say, I'm doing this. I'm going to finish this song. I'm going to upload it. People are going to see it. The people who really want to see it are going to see it. And I don't know how I'm going to reach anybody else, but I'm not going to think about that. And I'm just going to, I'm going to make as many things as I can, and they're going to serve me when I'm making other things, because that was the whole framework with the books. I go to the grocery store, I come home, I've sold books. I go to sleep, I go on vacation, I've sold books. When I'm working on other books, I've sold books. Like, once you can adapt to that, like, delayed income, because it's like you're waiting 3 months to get paid for stuff or whatever, it starts to work okay. But, like, I don't know, somebody just starting off, that's really hard to conceptualize. And if you just focus on one platform, you're not going to make it. Like, you're just not. Like, at least in this current climate, and I don't see it getting better at this point. Like, I don't know what it's going to turn into, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's amazing to me how bad YouTube is for you. And I totally understand that. I don't think that a lot of people really understand, because whenever you see oh, PewDiePie makes like $15 million, or Ryan's Toys makes like $27 million, and these are YouTubers.
Right.
All of a sudden, like, the story is, wow, these YouTubers are making millions of dollars by just uploading YouTube videos. And it's like, yeah, like, I don't know, maybe 10 of them are, maybe
Right.
like 20 of them are. It's like a tiny, tiny fraction of a fraction. And I was at a conference recently, and let me tell you, if people don't understand YouTube and they just read those, you know, like New York Times or whatever, Wall Street Journal headlines about what YouTube is, God, all they want to talk about is the money. That's all they want to talk about. And they think it's so much money and they can't believe it. And they're like, oh my gosh. I was introduced on a panel of like literal award-winning, like Emmy award-winning video producers, okay?
Yeah.
From like National Geographic and stuff. And I was introduced as like this rich YouTube star. Like
Wow.
that's how, and I was like, really? Like, I'm surrounded by probably literal millionaires.
Yeah.
And like senior producers for like multi-million-dollar 100-year-old media conglomerates. But I'm the one who gets singled out as being this, you know, this young, fresh, hot new millionaire raking in those internet bucks. And I'm just like, good Lord, you people have really, really no idea what it's actually like.
It's like, I also think that there's a misconception like on the audience side of like how much, so the creators need to hustle, but the fans need to hustle basically just as hard, because like, I can't tell you, there's one of the resets. So I can't tell you how many times like I've read, you know, I've come across a comment that somebody left somewhere that they're like, it's been insane to watch Hot Dad's ascent. It's insane to see how far he's gone. And it's like, I have accomplished things, but if you break it down in like a pragmatic fashion, I was reaching more people on my YouTube channel when I had half the subscribers. Like,
Yeah.
the number has grown, but the reach has shrunk like on every single platform. And it's, yeah, you're just constantly hustling to try to figure out like what will get this noticed by the algorithm, what will get viewers to notice this, what would, like, I don't know. It's just, it's so hard because from the outside, it appears that like so much is going right for somebody like me, say, but I don't know. It's completely exhausting to me to imagine that like there was a time where, you know, if I could just reach my 138,000 subscribers, that would be like absolutely amazing. Like that would be the most exciting thing in the world to me. Just the people who have said like, I want to see your content. If I could just reach those people, it would be, I can't even describe how amazing that would be. And it's just like, every single person talks about this. Every single YouTuber talks about this, that people contact them and they're like, why aren't you making stuff? Why haven't you made anything in a while? And it's just literally because algorithms have said no. So I don't know what the benefit is to hiding that. Like, why can't every person just reach their own audience and then pay to reach other audiences or something? I don't know. Why can't that be the case? Like, what's different about that? Like from a financial standpoint, I don't know.
I don't know either, but Matt, we see that comment on Vsauce too with every single upload. It's like, wow.
I haven't seen one in years. And like, I haven't seen Vsauce 2 videos in over a year. Like, well, since the time you saw the last one, there have been like 26 videos.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like there's been 2, but it's not their fault that it's not coming through their feeds. It's the strangest thing. And I like how simply you put that, just saying, you know, all I want to do is give the people who said they want to see what I make an opportunity to see what I make. Right.
Yeah.
And if that means at this point, subscriptions, capping them, I would be okay with that. I think I would be okay with that at this point, because a big problem is that people have 200 subscriptions now. Whereas, I don't know, in the early days, I was subscribed to like 6 or 7 or 8 channels.
Yeah.
And I was just browsing beyond that. Well, I can understand that you can't serve every video from 100 channels to somebody. It's just not going to happen. They have to be ranked in some way. Well, what if we said, we're going to cap you at, 25 or 50 or whatever it is. And if you want to raise that cap, that's part of YouTube Premium. Just to make it manageable so you can communicate with your actual fans. And if that means that somebody's hit the cap, they need to dump a channel to add another one, then you get dumped, and that's okay. That's part of the process too.
I mean, I think the craziest thing to me is when YouTube introduced the community feature, and it's like, you talk about all these different platforms, you talk about every social media site and how the cardinal sin is linking offsite. You never want to link offsite or else the links are going to get buried. So then the community feature comes around. And I remember the first time I used it, I just posted this like stupid picture of myself and it gets like 800 likes. And it's like almost nothing I post regularly gets 800 likes. So I was like, wow, this platform seems to have a lot of engagement. And I posted a couple of memes after that. And then I posted a video that like, it was, I did this song called I Like Love, and I actually like rented a venue to shoot it in, and I put all this time and energy into it, like spent all this money on it compared to like usual things. Of course it got buried. And so I'm like, the community feature, this is going to be great. Like I'm not linking off site. And I posted on the community feature, I link to a video on YouTube and it gets like 20 likes. It gets like maybe 10 likes. It gets like nothing. And just a picture of me gets 800. So I don't even know what to say about like, it's like insane that you give this opportunity now to link to something on the platform and you're going to bury that. You're going to kill it. I mean, you can't link to a video and expect it to get the interaction of just a screen cap from an upcoming video. Like, where else am I supposed to do that? Like,
I don't know. We were talking about this recently in regards actually to this podcast because they nerfed it. It used to be that you could link to videos on a community post and a ton of people would see it. So when we first started the Create Unknown, last year, our guests that we would have on the show would always do a community post promoting the podcast. Yeah. And it would drive tens of thousands of views. Yep. And then really sometime earlier this year, maybe like midway through. No, it was like earlier this year. They just nerfed it. It's
like March or April. Yeah.
Okay.
They just cut it off at the knees. And now, like you said, linking to YouTube videos on YouTube is worthless. It is really, really strange. And the community tab in general, I had arguments with YouTube about because of the way that they have the comments play out. They're not they're not nested. You can't actually have a conversation.
Right.
So like you post something on your community tab and then you ask a question or whatever, and then you just have this endless string of like 100 comments that just look like YouTube comments, and you can't actually talk to anybody. It's useless. And I told them that, and they just don't, I don't know. They don't care.
What I will say before I forget this point, Spotify actually will let you reach your audience if you follow very specific rules. So there's when somebody has clicked follow on your Spotify account, there's a playlist called Release Radar, which is supposed to be any artist that you're following. If you upload a song a week in advance or more, they guarantee that it will make it on all your followers' Release Radar playlist. So that I've tried to put more energy into Spotify, like basically structuring, because it used to be that like I would finish something and I'd be like, oh, I got to get this uploaded as soon as possible. I would do it the next day on Spotify, etc. But then I realized that like if I do that, I'm going to be guaranteed to reach 10,000 people with this song. So I'm going to delay everything by a week. So now essentially everything I do is delayed by a week, like depending on when the video is finished, compared to when the song is finished. But that's actually like a good thing right now. Like it's literally the only platform that I know of where that happens. But again, you have to delay it by a week or else it becomes completely random whether or not that'll happen. Because I had it killed my Christmas song last year. that was extremely annoying because I'd uploaded a song the next day, like 2 weeks earlier, and that went out to everybody's release radar playlists for some reason. Like I broke the rules of Spotify. It worked. It was okay. So then I upload that one like 4 or 5 days in advance, and it literally, I think it got like 30 plays before Christmas. Like it was,
wow.
It was so low, and it's like, obviously this is time sensitive. It's a Christmas song. And then, yeah, it's never done that well because of it. Just, I don't know. It's stupid. But again, that's one positive thing I can say about this landscape.
Can you explain something to me about Spotify in regards to presaves? So so Spotify has this thing where you can ask your fans to pre-save an album or a song. And
yes.
What does that mean, and what does that do?
I think, okay, so I've known ostensibly what it means for a long time, but I think that literally today, I've been asking people to pre-save songs for a long time. So there were some people saying like, oh, this looks like a weird, like I'm giving a weird permission to DistroKid or whatever, because DistroKid is the distributor I use. And they're one of, I don't think every distributor does this. But anyway, the point is, so if you pre-save a song, you're giving this info to DistroKid or whatever the distributor is. You're saying, I want to hear this. And then when the song goes live, DistroKid on your behalf automatically hits like on the track and adds it to one of your playlists. So the idea is that the song goes live and instantly all those people who hit pre-save, they've now added it to their playlists. And then Spotify says, oh, people are interested in this song. I'm going to put it on more playlists. And then that's the whole promulgation of songs is just, who seems interested in this? And so then we're going to send it out to more people. So I don't know if that clears it up, but it just literally increases the odds of you getting on more playlists.
Yeah. So do you think that there's any sort of YouTube analogy here or
oh, no way.
Like YouTube can't steal this? And
I guess I hope they could, but there's definitely nothing yet.
Yeah, no. Sorry. I don't mean today. I mean,
okay.
So YouTube is notorious for stealing other platforms' ideas, whether it's like stories or, stream, like Let's Play streaming. If some other platform has a great idea, they'll just rip it off. Could YouTube steal this idea to allow like super fans to pre-like a YouTube video before it goes live so that it gets an extra boost once you make it live in the algorithm? Is that a thing can you envision that?
It's kind of like premieres. I guess the question is, do premieres work? And I know that there's a lot of mysterious feelings about premieres and like how they affect the actual performance of the video after. Because I remember when that first happened, there were a number of bigger channels that had videos that they were, guessing were limited because they used the premiere feature or they re-uploaded it and got drastically different results. I don't know, because that does allow you to hit like in advance and it does allow you to open up the conversation in advance. I mean, I personally wish that I could, like Facebook, just pay to reach my audience. Like I would consider that from an advertising standpoint, because if I could just reach the 138,000 people, like that would make a lot of things happen for me just by default. And I'd be willing to pay some amount of money to do that on the creator side. But I don't know. I think that would be a good thing overall. The problem with YouTube is that every time they roll out a new feature, you have no idea what it does when you actually interface with, or as soon as you actually use that feature, you have no idea what other, externalities are going to be at play. Like how, I don't know. It's just crazy because you want to try all these new things. And then all of a sudden you found that your video is severely limited because you used Premiere, which is something that, that's been thrown in your face a whole bunch as this exciting new feature. You don't want to have fear associated with new features, but I think everybody has that at this point.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I don't know why I never thought about this, but it is kind of crazy that YouTube hasn't stolen Facebook's model of targeted advertising. Obviously you can do Google ads, but that's not the same. That's not what you're saying. You can't actually just target your subscribers to put your new video at the top of their feed. I mean,
Right.
God, you could do this on Etsy, I'm pretty sure. You can pay to have your thing on Etsy at the top of, I don't know about your followers, but certainly on like search terms. I don't know. It does seem like they must have a reason why they aren't doing that, because it seems way too obvious that it would be a good moneymaker for them.
Well, that too. And I mean, if you were to even bring it up and say like, oh, well, then obviously the channels with more money are going to get more placements, but they already get more placements anyway because they're that large. So I really don't see like what there is necessarily to lose there in a competitive sense.
Yeah.
If they let creators, though, pay to reach their own audiences, the outcry would be tremendous, because it would just be YouTube is now a pay-to-play. I mean, I don't even know how they'd handle that. They can't handle much lighter criticism than that. You know, and they pride themselves so much on this notion that anybody with a camera and their phone can make videos and upload them to the world for free. Then YouTube comes down and says, well, sort of. You can get them on there, but you're gonna have to pay a little bit to actually let your subscribers see these. You know, it's a strange kind of thing, and I think that it would make a bit of a global problem as well, where the tiers of who has budgets to push that sort of thing varies tremendously from, say, Indiana to India. Right. And I think that it would put creators in certain parts of the world at a severe disadvantage, much, much worse than they're already at. I can see YouTube not wanting to touch this one at all, but it would be amazing if there was a mechanism that, like you said, just allowed you to show your stuff to the people who have expressed explicitly that they want to see that stuff.
And I mean, I guess it's like there have been all these different phases of YouTube too, where like that, I think that used to be the case. And I mean, I just remember talking to, I was talking to Internet Comment Etiquette Erik about this. And like back when he first was giving me plugs, like there's no reason why he hasn't broken 1 million subscribers yet. Like I can't understand why that hasn't happened. Like just videos appearing anywhere. Like there should be enough traction there. There should be enough traffic there to drive that. And I remember years ago, it was like 2016. He's like, once you break 50,000 subscribers, like all the wheels are turning. Like you're going to go, there's no stopping you then. And it's like, it was kind of playing out that way. And then it's like exactly when I broke 100,000 subscribers, like that's when everything just started slowing down. Like everything like just started, it went to a crawl. And it's like, I have one video that YouTube promotes once or twice a year. I really, really, really like this image. It has 6 million views. It gets tons of interactions. The algorithm promotes the hell out of it. It goes nuts. And then it just dies. Like it drives like it'll drive maybe 8 to 10,000 subscribers, and then it just quits. And they don't go to any other videos. They don't go to anything else. And I should say, like, okay, I'm grateful that happens. There's a lot of people who'd say, I wish that happened to me. But again, I've made other things. Like I have made other songs. Like, and I'm going to say maybe at least a small percentage of those people would like the other songs. And you can watch it happen. I posted a stat of this because I don't do a ton of like Twitter complaining about YouTube, but I made a post about that because it feels like I'm in a vacuum where like you look at the stats and you just have this one video that's getting all these views every day. And then all the other ones, the closest, because like that would pull like 10,000 views a day or something. And then the closest next video was getting like 700 or something. And it's like, I don't know. So that feels kind of frustrating to me that the only growth I've had in 2 years is YouTube choosing to promote one video to people. And that's it. That's the only thing that drives traffic to me at this point.
Yeah. And there is a little bit of a conspiracy theory that I know of in regards to subscriber benchmarks, meaning like it's possible. I'm not saying that I know this, but it is possible that once you passed 100,000 subscribers, if the next few videos was like significantly lower than 100,000 views, then YouTube does, I think, punish the channel and say, well, this channel is not accelerating anymore. Like this channel is like in decline. So
yeah.
So if you like multiply the effect here, say it's like a channel with 10 million subscribers, but for like 3 months, all the videos only get, 100,000 views.
Right.
I think that YouTube reads that as this channel is in decline, so let's stop showing it to people because people don't really like it anymore. So I do think that there is this weird thing where you can hit certain benchmarks and be punished for it if the growth slows down.
That's so cool. I love that.
But you are doing all these different things. You're doing merch. You're doing cassette tapes, which hopefully my cassette arrives today. I don't know. I was hoping to have it for this interview so I could hold it up, but maybe the mail's here. Maybe in post we can add it. I'll tweet about it for sure. But what is the process? Because we do have some musicians who listen to the podcast regularly, and you're the first musician that we've had on the show. So I would love if you could give our musician listeners some advice on how things like Bandcamp even work, and if you have any like tips for like any of this stuff when it comes from making physical CDs to doing Spotify to anything that you could allow the audience to glean from your experience.
I mean, there's a lot I can say about those experiences. I think as a musician doing this, okay, so I have, and I don't feel like I'm using these, like, what your degree is, I think only obviously means a small amount, but like, I have an econ major and a music minor. Like, that's what my background is. And I guess I've never really thought of myself in like a pure artistic sense. I always had these creative like capabilities that I didn't really understand, but like I didn't grow up in a creative household. I never envisioned myself doing anything creative. And so for me, I guess it's been the easiest way to describe it is like a right brain, left brain clash of just like trying to make good ideas financially, and then also trying to make sure that like my weirdest impulses are fulfilled, etc. And I guess trying to meet in the middle, but also having these extreme points that like balance you out. Because if you're not happy with what you're doing, and that's something that like has really affected me, at different periods in my career. I've done things. I used to make songs about like famous people just to get, traffic to myself. And then that like started to feel oily to me, and it started to feel like I just don't like how I feel after I've done this. I've got a lot of people that are asking me if I'm going to do songs about the political candidates this year. I don't know if I am, because I don't look back at those and feel like that was my best use of energy. I mean, everybody's political, and I have politics, and I just don't feel that they're best that like art with politics in it. I just don't feel like it works that well for me. Like, it just never really feels good. So that's obviously one angle of that. It's more or less having this balance between the creative side and the financial side, which is where I was saying, like, you need to have a Patreon, you need to be on Spotify, you need to find a distributor that isn't going to take a ton of your royalties. You need to be looking at what percentages a company is going to take. Bandcamp usually takes about 10%. I feel like a lot of good success with pay what you want, including free on Bandcamp, because Bandcamp allows you to do that. I guess I've always been of the mindset that, like, if somebody really wants my music, I'd rather they just take it and give me an email address or something. And if they ever feel like they have the money to pay for it, let them pay for it.
Or maybe they'll buy a shirt instead,
right,
like down the road. Yeah.
Right. And it's like, that is always a tough thing. That's something that I always struggle with, because you do have people who don't want to, they don't like the Patreon model. They don't like that Patreon takes a cut. I have people that just literally don't like that they give me money and somebody else takes any percentage of it. And it's like, I'm just out here saying, oh, they only take 10%. That's great compared to what it could be. Like, I don't know. So I'm trying to juggle all these pragmatic ideas.
Yeah, but even if they PayPal you money, they're taking 3%. So
right.
Unless they like drive to your front door with an envelope of cash, I mean,
Right.
there's going to be some sort of middleman kind of like taking their piece of the pie.
Right. So, I pay, a monthly fee to have a Shopify store. The thing is, Shopify takes a lower percentage than Bandcamp does. But then when I'm not selling a lot, like I'm still having to pay to keep the store open, etc. But like then on Bandcamp, you can accept tips because people can overpay for stuff. So I don't know. It's a matter of engaging in all the platforms. It's a matter of, there's a podcast that they were literally the first ones. Like I credit them with me continuing to keep going in music because when I first started doing the TV themes, I set this arbitrary number of 50. I'm just going to do 50 TV themes. I'm just going to see what happens. Okay. And when I got to number 49, it was a lot of, people were in the comments telling me, do this show, do this show, do this show. And I've described this in my Discord. I've talked about this a fair amount, that like eventually the comments become, or what do I want to say? The compliments become implied. That like they're just like, do this show. They don't say good job anymore. They just ask you to do the next person, do the next show, do the next wrestler. Because I did songs about wrestlers. I don't follow wrestling. I did it for people who follow wrestling and are into these wrestlers. And eventually, I don't know, it starts to feel like burnout. Like every time you finish something, it's going to lead to doing something else. So this podcast, Laser Time, I was at number 49, and then they did this write-up. And it was like things weren't really happening. And yeah, this guy, Chris from Laser Time, did this write-up, and it was like he got everything I was doing. Like I got choked up reading it, and I was like, I'm a nobody doing something. I'm just trusting that what I'm doing is good, or that it's a decent thing that I'm doing. And he did this write-up, and I was just like, I can't believe that somebody gets this, like this sort of esoteric thing that I'm trying to execute. And that was like number 49, and that kept me going for a long time. And I formed a friendship with him, and their podcast was pretty early on Patreon, and he was warning me, about in terms of like fulfilling rewards for patrons and stuff, like don't stretch yourself too thin, like set reasonable limitations, because like he was losing his life because like there was just so many things he had promised to everybody, and it's like he wants to do it. He's grateful for the audience's support, but like he's having to give up things. He's having to have, to lose all personal free time. Like those sorts of things happen when you overpromise. And so if you want things to be sustainable, you have to figure out where those limits are for you, because you don't want to burn out. You don't want to overpromise. You don't want to do these things that are going to make you miserable, even though they're supposed to be like coming from a grateful place. So you have to have balance. You have to have focus. You have to have, I don't want to say you need specifically long-term goals, but I mean, you need to plan a little bit ahead, like what you're going to do next and like what platforms you're going to use. I rushed out this cassette because it's Christmas, it's the holidays, and I didn't know if I was going to do it or not. And I was like, I'm going to be able to sell other cassettes if I put out this cassette. So I don't know. I've had to work out all these different things. I've had to wear all these different hats. I don't have a manager. I don't have an agent. I don't have anything. So I have to negotiate deals on my own behalf. I bought a thermal label printer so I can fulfill orders quicker. Like I've had to do all this research into, bubble padding, and I handle all the fulfillment of orders. And I don't know, like I have a shirt company called Tone Threads that they give me actually pretty great margins compared to a lot of these other sites. And they just have like a screen printer machine, and it's zero. They make stuff on demand. And I mean, I can set the price of the shirt and set the profit that I make on the shirt. It's just all these sorts of little decisions like that. Like you have to research the possibilities. And I mean, obviously it's important to like get something out there, like to have merch available. Like it's better to have merch available than to not have merch available, but it's also good to like compare the rates, compare what they're going to take, compare how much effort you need to put into on the fulfillment end, because all those things add up to your time. And I don't know, most people want to have a life outside of the career, the creation process. I don't know, that's a lot of words, but
it's really easy to get bogged down in those details. Like I'm so glad that you said the thing about bubble wrap, because it's not something you'd think about until you need to do it. Right.
Right.
And people don't realize that. So, I think about bubble envelopes where, the threshold is like 3/8 of an inch or 1/4 inch or something like that on thickness on an envelope to where it stops being an envelope. Okay.
Yeah.
So when you want a padded thing, you've got to think, I've got 2 layers of padding. I've got whatever's going in the middle of it, which if it's paper, that's one thing. But then maybe if you have to put a backing board in to make that paper not get crunched up, that adds thickness. If you've got something that's in a case, that adds thickness. And all of a sudden you're literally thinking about how big in diameter and how thick the bubbles are in the bubble wrapped envelope, because they are relevant to this limit. Yeah. And then like an hour or 2 later, you realize like, this is how I spent my Tuesday afternoon, was crunching every detail about bubble wrap on mailers. And I hate this. There are people who do love it.
Yeah.
I like it a lot more than most people. So that's cool. Like when we had to send stuff out, talking to Kevin, it took us like 15 seconds to realize that I'm going to not mind this.
Yeah. Did you get hit with the increased international rates?
Yeah. Because the international rates are nuts.
But have you figured out there's one weird trick?
Is there?
Yes, there is. It's basically after, so I put out my first cassette in, I think it was September of 2017, and international shipping was like $4 to $6 per cassette. Like it was just a flat rate. Yep. So then I put out a cassette in 2018, and I'm not even thinking about this. I'm just like, okay, I'm going to set up the shipping. And suddenly it's costing literally $13 to ship a cassette. Like in that year time, it completely changed. And
yes,
that killed the sales of that cassette. Cause like all of a sudden every international order, they're all saying, I won't do this. I can't, like it's more than the price of the cassette. Right. So I found out that I have no idea why they did this, but there's, if you're using ShipStation, basically, stamps.com has this thing where if you say it's a flat, you have to say international first class. And if you say it's a flat or large envelope, it can't exceed basically 1 inch thickness, or they have specific diameters or lengths and widths. But if you do that, it cuts like $5 or $6 off the shipping. If you select that specific option, and it does some kind of bulk rate, where you ship it to like a fulfillment center, and they ship a bunch of stuff over to the UK all at once. So like,
I see.
Yeah. And that's the only way. Now I got cassette shipping down to like $8 to $10 to go internationally, which again is still higher than it was. But like the amount of time I spent on this is just like insane. Like it was just, So if you're not cut out to like make those kinds of decisions, like if you just want to go with I don't know, Teespring or something to get shirts up and never have to think about this, I would highly recommend that. But yeah, if you want to offer like unique offerings and cassettes and things like that, like I actually use there's a company called Kunaki that is very bizarre. It's like a factory that's automated. Apparently they have like 2 employees. And you literally you submit the details for a CD, and it just automatically produces it and mails it out on your behalf. Like you just input it and you pay a flat credit card fee, and they just ship them out. And they're not super fancy CDs, but like if the art looks good, it will look quite good. And the risk is like none. There's no risk. So like I could be making like cooler CDs with like flip fold, I like all these different things, but like I don't know what I feel about CDs anymore. Like it's not really a format that needs to exist versus like analog formats that like have this sort of introduced imperfection. I mean, that makes it sound differently and makes it a different experience. But like Kunaki has like completely saved me on CDs. Like I don't have to have boxes of merch. I don't have to have boxes of CDs that I'm shipping out. I just literally copy paste somebody's address into the site, and then it just goes through a process. Like I can go check it and it'll say, you know, the machine printed the disc label. The machine has now printed the actual labels. Now it's been mailed, and then it gives you a tracking number. And like, that's really cool. And like, I figured out my own rates that like if I was buying them versus having them do it, I could make like an extra 20 cents or something, but I don't want to have to ship boxes to me of CDs now.
No, it's not worth your time. I want to go back quickly. And then we're going to go through our little Patreon wormhole, and we're going to ask you a question exclusively for our patrons. But before we do that, I want to just kind of touch upon something that, you know, if the people listening right now, you know, they aren't musicians, they aren't planning on making CDs, there is something that they can do no matter what their interest is. And that's what you mentioned in regards to that article that really inspired you to keep going, that from the person who reached out and said, like, this is what Hot Dad is doing and this is why it's great. Not that I'm saying everybody has to like write an article about somebody whose work they admire, but just doing like a tweet, just like a single like thoughtful comment on a YouTube video really, really, really goes a long way. At least, you know, to me, in my experience, where if somebody actually puts together like a nice, thoughtful, coherent comment on one of my videos or sends out a tweet unprompted saying like, hey, I really appreciate what you do because of XYZ. That is so rare. Like I can't even tell our listeners how rarely that actually happens. Like hardly anybody ever just goes out of their way to like tell somebody that they appreciate what they do, so that as somebody who does create things and shares them for an audience, it is really genuinely so deeply appreciated that I think that people really should kind of hear that and understand that it does mean a lot.
I mean, it was seriously, that was like a massive game changer for me, because I had, like I was saying, I had like 150 subscribers in the channel, and I just embarked upon this new journey. And I don't know, there's it's the Ira Glass discussion of creativity and like how it plays out. Essentially that you have good taste, that's why you want to make something. And just because you have good taste doesn't mean that what you're making, like, you're going to be able to tell that it stinks. It's not good. And you just have to keep going until like your taste and what you're making, like, they're equal. And like, that just takes, you know, so many hours to do that. But I don't know, like for the first 49, I had people saying like, oh, this is funny, but nobody was really like expressing any kind of larger sentiment than just, you know, haha, you know, just a quick YouTube comment or whatever. And then all of a sudden somebody does this write-up where they're describing in detail all these things, like, I don't, just making it into this sort of like almost sentimental thing. And it just, I don't know, it resonated with me in a way that few things have. And it's just like, that whole time was convincing myself, like, I have a reason for doing this. I'm good enough. Like, there's a point in doing this, and nothing's really happening. And then suddenly somebody's like, you do have a point, you know? And then you're just like, okay, I'll keep going for another, 25 theme songs or whatever, like, and then try to figure out what to do.
Yeah, because telling yourself that message, that what you're doing is meaningful in the mirror is fine for a while. But yeah, right. Like you said, after like 49 of them, the 49th time you're looking at yourself in the mirror saying this is meaningful, it's right. Hard as heck to do that another 49 times. So yeah, even just having one person unprompted saying, hey, this is meaningful, you are right. hot dad.
And I mean, I have to give a shout out to my fan base. I have one of the nicest there's almost no toxicity in any of the YouTube comments anymore. Almost none of that is attracted anywhere I go. And I don't necessarily know how that's happened, but it has. And I think that that's kind of a rare thing these days. And so I don't know. It is really amazing. And I try to make sure that I respond whenever somebody says something like that, even if I don't have enough time to write a long response, because I mean, as I'm sure you know, it's like you read a comment like that and you want to give it like all this respect, and you can't do that over like there's just only so much energy that you have. So I try to make sure that like at the very least I tell people that, you know, I'm thankful that they took time out of their day to like say something nice to me. You know, even if I can't go into all the details of all the things that they said that are meaningful about it. But yeah, it's amazing when that happens, and you have to try to focus on that instead of, you know, the negativity bias that we all have in terms of, you know, focusing on that one negative comment and refusing to say like, oh, I'm good at something. I'm at least a little good at something. You know, you just.
When we zip through to the other side here, I think it's going to be one question because it's a big question. It's a long question, or a long answer to a very short question. And that question is, what means sex?
Yes.
I would love for everybody to, when we go through, be able to hear the process on that particular song, like from beginning to end, how this happened and how it played out, because it's kind of such a strange one and really awesome. And if we could get like the full blood work on how you go from idea to end product on what means sex, that would be amazing.
I'd love to. There was, okay, so Something Awful forums. I assume you're familiar with. Are
we answering this now, or are we going to transition through?
Oh yeah. Let's save it. So it's going to start. Yep. It starts with Something Awful forums. To hear the rest of it, you need to go to patreon.com/thecreateunknown. We're going through the wormhole right now. If you're not joining us, then please do yourself a favor, not anybody else, just you, and follow Hot Dad. Watch his videos. Check him out on Spotify. Spotify is a great place and a great platform for your Hot Dad needs. Check out his cassettes, t-shirts, CDs, the whole ecosphere of Hot Dad, because it will make your life better. I don't know, like if Hot Dad doesn't put a smile on your face, then you need to see a doctor, honestly. So check out Hot Dad. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going through the wormhole. Until then, see you, Space Cowboys.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to The Create Unknown. There's more episode waiting for you, but to keep listening, sign up at patreon.com/thecreateunknown. You could hear the rest of our conversation, as well as unlock the ad-free feed, get exclusive content, join the Idea Baby Gang, and more.